For most people in the U.S., bagpipes are usually only heard here, during St. Patrick's Day celebrations. And with bagpipes blaring and drums beating, it's easy to see the martial origins of bagpipe music. For both the Scots and the Irish, bagpipes were a musical instrument of war. But when I asked these pipers about what they loved about the bagpipes, no one spoke of the army or of glory. They spoke of the bagpipe's ability to conjure feelings of nostalgia, mourning, and unattainable longing.
This is something deep and emotional, and it's something different. You don't hear it very often.
It reminds me of home. How about that? Oh yeah, that's good. It's good. It's part of the family.
It's just the way the sound is. Just reaches down into your soul. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that they are moved to tears when they're listening to bagpipes at funerals, and also moved to tears when they're playing bagpipes at a wedding. So it's a very interesting instrument in that sense. Yeah, I gotta go.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Carry on. At the halt. Let it roll.
The bagpipes have a decidedly multidimensional nature. A sound that inspires soldiers into battle, a sound that is capable of inspiring light-hearted joy, but also a sound that is mournful and haunting. A sound that connects the Celtic diaspora to a home that they may have never even seen with their own eyes. A sound that seems to tap into the transcendent and sacred. Most people think that the bagpipes were invented here, by the ancient Celtic peoples of Ireland and Scotland. But the bagpipes actually originated far from these islands. Some say they go back as far as the ancient Greeks, or even deeper into antiquity. Many historians believe that Rome developed the bagpipes, that the Emperor Nero himself played bagpipes, and it was the Roman Empire that helped spread bagpipes throughout Europe and ultimately to the British Isles.
The first people that actually put the ancestor of a bagpipe together, which we know about, were the Greeks, and they had this instrument with two flutes coming out of the mouth. They were blown simultaneously, and one had sort of the melody, the other one had a drone going. And then somewhere along in history, maybe it was even the Greeks, I don't know, but they put this on a bag so that they could blow it up and power both of the flutes from an airstream. And it went uphill from there. I don't think I know of any single European country that doesn't have a native set of pipes.
The bagpipe is a very ancient instrument, and it did not start in Scotland or Ireland or the British Isles at all. It's traced back to probably the Middle East, certainly the Mediterranean area. And I think it's fascinating, if you want to check this out, look at nativity sets at Christmas time. A lot of times among the shepherds you may find a figurine with a kind of bagpipe. You know, it won't look like this. but it'll definitely be a bag with a flute coming out of it and probably a blowpipe going into it. And that's just a hint of the reality of how old the pipes are. Somebody was playing flute and you had to take a breath every so often, and they figured out that if they put a skin bag on it and they filled the bag up with air, they could squeeze that bag and keep the sound going while they took a breath. And that was the origin of the pipe. And I don't know when bagpipes were first done, but it goes back at least 2,000 years. And it evolved and traveled. Nero, who is said to have fiddled while Rome burned, in fact, the historians think today he was playing bagpipes while Rome burned, a kind of Roman bagpipe. And, but that concept of the bagpipe spread all across the West, certainly, and the Celts took hold of it, and up in the remote reaches of the British Isles is where the Highland bagpipe developed.
There's a good deal of conjecture that says that maybe the Romans brought the pipes into Scotland. But there's equal conjecture that says that it was there and it migrated in from Ireland, because they always had their war pipes there. So nobody really knows.
The surprising thing is that the Romans would have been playing bagpipes long before there was any bagpipe in the British Isles at all.
Now, the Scots had their Highland pipes with the chanter and the 3 drones. The Irish likewise have the same rig, however, with 2 drones. And it was always very martial. And if you listen to a pipe up close, you almost can't stand it because it's as loud as an automobile horn. It's very, very commanding. It has a presence. And it's always been used by the Scots, at least in recent history, to march into battle to the sound of the pipes and the drums. And it really starts the blood to pumping. And it's a martial instrument. It always has been. Now, after the Battle of Culloden, when the Scots got thoroughly trounced by the English, they had assizes in England. And they took a number of the traitors, the Scottish people that were basically rebelling towards their freedom, and they executed them. And along with them, they took a poor piper by the name of James Reed, and they hung him too, because the court ruled that the Highland pipes, with that commanding presence, were an instrument of war. Well, back in the old days, and that's probably before 1,000 years or so, there were all these clan chieftains in Ireland. In other words, there was at one point maybe a high king, but there were a lot of these different clan chieftains, and they all had their pipers. They had their druids, they had their pipers, they had their bards, poets, right? And they had pipers. It was probably usually the old-fashioned war pipe style piper, but they all had pipers, and they all had harpers and stuff like that.
These are the Great Highland bagpipe, and if you hear someone talk about the Irish war pipe, it's the same as the Great Highland pipe. The uilleann pipes are typically your Irish pipes. Uilleann simply is Gaelic for elbow. That's because instead of blowing into the bag, you're actually using a bellows under one arm to fill the bag under the other arm. They came down to us through the military tradition, and in fact the British military helped preserve piping down into modern times by the use of pipes in the Highland regiments. However, if you go back far enough to the days of Pibroch, for example, and Pibroch is the classical music of the pipes, if you will. It's called Cael Mór, which means the great music. Pibroch simply translates as pipe music, but Pibroch was prior to the idea of marches and sort of over the top into battle kind of thing. And Pibrochs come in a variety of purposes. They were for laments, but also for clan gatherings, also as salutes to a clan chief or some hero. So various things like that. And it's a theme and variations kind of music. And that really predates what I think of as the more martial music. But certainly there is a strong military tradition in the Great Highland pipes.
When the Scottish music, when they reinstituted the war pipes into the military regiments and started marching around Europe, playing things like Amazing Grace, and it became sort of cemented into the popular culture. Particularly that it's a hymn, you know, and it arouses feelings of piety and reverence, and it's sort of carved itself a niche.
We don't always do the full regalia like I am this morning, but for this I thought it'd be nice. Also depends on how hot it is. Yeah, get a little sunshine. The Amazing Grace hymn itself happens to fall so perfectly on the pipes. It's a beautiful hymn, written in the 18th century. There's a great story behind it, but that hymn fits the pipes so very well, and it is used very often at funerals, and it just somehow was a perfect match. It ministers even as it, may choke you up. It also kind of is soothing at the same time. It's a very interesting thing, and it's a great privilege that I have to very often to play for events like that, and it's always very moving.
Well, since the hymn Amazing Grace was written, it has been adopted and played all over the world by any number of Scottish regimental bands that feature pipes and drums. And that's one of the ways that it sort of crept into people's consciousness, right? And that's what sticks with people's minds. That's a very well-beloved hymn, and just about everyone on the planet must have heard the pipes play it by now.
The sound of the pipes is special, and the sound of the Highland pipes is unique. It's certainly, it's a little piercing, so it's not for everybody. Some people's ears and their sensitivity is such that they really don't enjoy it. But for so many people, the Highland pipes have a way of sort of really getting into the heart, into the soul.
Well, it arouses emotion in a very peculiar way, because you have a melody which is played on a chanter, and it's got this sort of weird drone in the background, and that is really the magic of the pipes. I don't care which country it comes from, but it's sort of like that. But there must be something about the enigmatic sound that just, it's almost like a drum beat, which is really soft in the background. When something is going on in the background, it changes the whole character of the melody.
That's, yeah, I mean, again, that's absolutely, the drones provide that sort of unique atmosphere. And, the Irish pipes have the drones that give you that, and and Northumberland pipes and other kinds of pipes as well, my Scottish small pipes, and the great Highland pipes. You know, that drone sound really, creates a thrill. The drones strike in first, and then the chanter comes in, and it's just a special thing. And the drones just give that background and that warmth. You know, they're two tenor drones and a bass drone, so they're 1 and 2 octaves below the chanter. And there's a lot of harmonics that emerge as if you've got a well-tuned pipe, hopefully, that just make for a really rich sound. And when I play with the band, you know, the sound is so important. We spend time working on tuning the drones and getting the whole band to get that solid wall of drone sound. And then, of course, we try to bring all the chanters exactly in together. And the tighter the chanters are, the more the harmonics are released and just create a really nice experience.
The Welsh have a word for that longing, hiraeth. And hiraeth means that indefinable longing. It'll make you homesick for a place you've never been. And it's just like that. There's something in it that, I mean, for me, it's sort of like, it's like atavistic. There's some genetic something in me that wants to reach out and grab it. And it can be particularly a lament, you know, as you get into one of those really eerie laments. It can be almost like a religious experience.
You know, Gregorian Chant gives you this sound, right? And the drones are similar to that. I think there's definitely a similarity, but I would argue there's even, in terms of that drone sound that's almost meditative, or what's the word I'm looking for? You know, it can almost be trance-inducing, but I don't want to necessarily say trance-inducing, but that unique sound, that meditative sound, that's Gregorian Chant, that's the drones of the bagpipe. There are lots of similarities in other kinds of music around the world. Tibetan monks and some Mongolian vocal techniques that give you that kind of low, steady sound, vibrating going. Think of the didgeridoo in Australia. Great sound. And in fact, sometimes you get to hear a didgeridoo and a pipe playing together. It's really fun. It's really fun. So I think, yeah, as you go around the world, I mean, this kind of hum, this sort of underlying oscillation, this vibration, you know, kind of sets up or sets the groundwork, the framework, the background for the music, which makes it really special. A friend of mine once told me that when they measured the pulses in the universe, that it was B flat, which was the pipes. And I don't know if that's true, but I like the idea. There's this greater resonance going on out there, and we're picking up on that. So, yeah.
But there is really something about the pipes that it either grabs you by the heart or it leaves you stone cold. And that cannot be explained. But to me, I mean, it's whether Scots or Irish or whatever, Northumbrians or whatever I have in me, it's an atavistic pull. Something in the genes is pulling me into that. And that's what got me started into piping. And every time I hear a lament, particularly Finbarr's laments, it's magic. It's a magical experience listening to Finbar play the lament, because nobody does it like he does. And the laments are sort of these old Gaelic songs just converted into music, and he knows how to put the right little ornamentations in and everything to just sort of make it perfect. And these old laments, some of them have been around for a long, long, long time. That may be one of the first musical forms of the pipes in Ireland, is the lament, because they come from these old Gaelic songs, even if the songs have been forgotten. Sometimes they haven't, sometimes they have. But it's that feeling that you get. It's just uniquely Irish, but it also meshes with other cultures as well. But I'm just one of those, you know, where I really, really love the pipes. I dig them. They turn me on. And some people, you know, they just get out of my face, get out of my ears, you know. But with me, it's atavistic. There's some kind of genetic pull that's always pulled me towards the pipes ever since I first heard them. And I may have been, 8 or 9 years old. It didn't affect my father at all. It didn't affect my brother at all. It just, you know, but it just got me. I know a guy with a German name who's a fantastic, enthusiastic Highland piper, you know. So you can't really link it to nationality. But it's something about that magical combination when the chanter hits the drones get into your ear and they just sort of take over. Especially the Highland pipes. When you're out there playing and the chanter's perfectly in tune, and you got those drones, you know, in the background. It's magic.
You know, I think the bagpipes, of course, are really tied in with tradition. There's no question about that. When I play, I certainly feel a connection to the family that I knew when I was a little boy and grew up with. You know, they were from older generations. And there's a connection with other Scots and other Irish folks. Certainly a lot of the traditions are so interwoven that it is definitely a part of it. But I also feel that when I play the pipes, when we get that sound going, when the drones are in tune and the chanter is balanced and the harmonics are coming out and it's going well, it's a wonderful experience. It's a spiritual experience. It's a beautiful thing. And in that sense, really, I would use that sense to say that it connects with my forebears, with my contemporaries. It connects universally. I think that's what music does. Great music, good music. And Duke Ellington said, if it sounds good, it is good. And that's the standard for music. And when it sounds good, it's a universal thing. And I think for me, the pipes do that. It's a wonderful thing when they get going really well on a day and the weather's right and the humidity's right and everything's really going. It is just such a joy, and making that sound, bringing that sound out is just a lot of fun. And seeing people, whether they're tapping their feet or they're just lost in a reverie of melancholy. You know that the pipes are doing their thing, and it's just a great joy.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at aibtv.com. Follow us at Watch AIB TV on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And subscribe to AIB Studios on YouTube.